It is shocking.
Let me pick up on that last point, Mr. Sheshasai, that in fact the budget ignored inflation. You in fact heard Lord Desai talk about complacency on the part of the government. Would you accept the view that the government has not done enough and that as a result the RBI had to step in and overreact, and perhaps overreact with the wrong assumption in mind?
Well, I must preface my response with the statement that it is looking to be rather curious that the economist friends are now beginning to sound like representatives of the industry, and I'm going to sound very much like the other side, because I believe that this is a complex situation in terms of inflation. We have inflation coming as a result of commodity prices, which is a result again of speculative positions being taken at a global level, lots of money sloshing around globally. That's causing inflation. There is also inflation resulting from the fiscal deficit, and there is undoubtedly inflation happening because the consumption is outstripping supply. You can call it a supply constraint, or you can say that the demand is in excess of supply, but the fact is that all three need to be tackled, and therefore if we have to tackle the last part, I don't see anything illogical in Reserve Bank raising the rate to tame this situation. So in a way, yes, it is making a choice, and it's making it very clear that it is making a choice of containing inflation in preference to promoting growth. And this is unfortunate because we have not addressed the situations of supply constraints in this economy for a long time, so we're beginning to pay the price for this, but I think this is unavoidable. And to answer your question, yes, government have not done enough in terms of fiscal deficit control, has not addressed the issues of subsidy, has not done enough in terms of supply constraints being removed, and therefore there is an effect certainly being caused by that. But in isolation, the act of Reserve Bank, to my mind, is unavoidable.
Let's, gentlemen, come to the impact that this interest rate hike is going to have on growth. It's something that Professor Debroy began by talking about. Professor Debroy, the RBI has predicted that as a result, growth in the year 2011-2012 will come down from the estimated expected 8.6 to 8%. Do you agree, or do you think it could be in fact a sharper fall and the RBI is not being totally truthful?
Look, given what has happened, I would expect a shaving of growth by about 0.5%. Depends on what base you are working with. The RBI may have said 8.6%. I had initially expected growth to be 9%. So I would say that growth, because of this, is going to be probably 8.5%, because I think the RBI initially had underestimated the growth that was likely to happen. The RBI is always conservative.
What about something else? If in fact the pressure on inflation, because the government can't keep the deficit target that it set to 4.5%, or because international commodity prices, oil and food in particular, remain high, if for all those reasons the pressure on inflation remains and you see further interest rate hikes, as at least some analysts are predicting, sometimes even as quickly as June or July, then what will happen to growth, Professor Debroy?
Well, I suspect that the government, this is a gross caricature of what the government seems to be doing, but the caricature is the following, that we don't want 9% growth. As long as we have got 8% growth, we are fine with that. Now, so far as the inflation issue is concerned, no one is denying that there's an inflation issue. And if I'm talking about food price inflation, no one is denying that demand is far more than supply. The moot question is monetary policy the best instrument? And the answer is no, monetary policy is not the best instrument for any of these three varieties of inflation: the food, the commodities, and the manufacturing. And the RBI unfortunately has become a bit of a scapegoat, because the government must be seen to do something, and therefore we go back to monetary policy, although economic survey last year at least itself told us that monetary policy is singularly ineffective in handling this kind of inflation.
What about on this question of growth, Mr. Nainan? Do you think that the RBI has got it right when it says it will be just 0.6 less, or do you think you could end up with growth slipping perhaps as low as 7%?
Karan, frankly, these forecasts have very little meaning. All the RBI, I think 3 months ago, was giving a higher rate. 2 months ago, the finance minister was talking about 9%. That's what the economic survey said. So I don't see much point in debating this. You don't know what the harvest is going to be like. You don't know how much further the interest rates will have to go up. So, I think it's very difficult to say what the growth rate will be when the system is basically slightly off balance. The key point is that I don't want to blame the RBI for raising interest rates, because you give them a hammer and everything they see, every problem they see is going to be a nail. The only instrument they have is interest rates, so they'll hike interest rates, and as I said, in absolute terms the interest rate is not high. The problem lies, and Mr. Seshasai and others have talked about high demand. Now that high demand is coming from a high fiscal deficit. The problem lies with government, which has gone and given bank loan write-offs. It's spending more money that it does not have. It's increasing subsidies. The problem lies in the politics of this country, that people don't want to take hard decisions in a budget.
Okay.
And then you will get this, and then you will have to compromise on growth.
Let me come, Lord Desai, to what I suppose is the tussle or tug of war that must have gone through the government's mind and the RBI's mind in particular. Was the RBI right to prioritize the fight against inflation ahead of the growth targets the government has set itself?
Well, I think first of all one has to question the growth target the government predicted in the budget. The government predicted a growth target in the budget which I think was itself an overestimate, because last year's growth rate 8.6 was boosted by an extraordinary bounce from a low agricultural year previously. I think if you look at all that, I never thought that the growth rate was possible at 8% this year anyway. I think it's going to be more like 7.5%. But leaving that aside, I think it is a political problem that the government is not ready to make the hard decisions. It has not been ready for the last 2 years. It has not tackled the supply side problem because we have a completely useless agriculture minister. Now, all these things are known. What is the RBI to do? If you have a loose fiscal policy, you have to have a tight monetary policy. I mean, there is not much choice otherwise. And although I think growth will suffer, it will not be because of just because of RBI. The government has misread the situation, and FDI is not flowing back in. And I think the government is drifting without a policy. RBI is taking the blame for tackling this problem, but what else is RBI to do?
Alright, we're going to take a break at that point. We seem to be having trouble with the line to Chennai. Mr. Sheshasai's connection has just broken, but hopefully it will be back when we return. And then we're going to ask the question, is this present concern with inflation an opportunity for the government to bite the bullet with reform, to undertake the measures it's allegedly committed to, but also allegedly hesitating about? Because is reform the way of increasing the absorptive capacity of the economy, so the next time we edge towards 9% growth, inflation doesn't shoot through the roof? All of that in a moment's time.